Well, awesome. I appreciate you guys for jumping on today. Our special guest today is Tara with Design TLC. She's going to introduce herself and a little bit of her backstory. Before we get started, we just want to remind everybody that's watching this that the purpose of the Open We Stand movement is to help build and collaborate and communicate positive stories and journeys for small business and entrepreneurs. It's really the community that can elevate and uplift each other. So these little snippets and these insights into your world are incredibly powerful and impactful. So thank you, Tara, for joining us. I'd love to have Rachel and Jonathan introduce themselves before we get started, and then we can go from there. So Rachel, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel McCool. Really appreciate Adam for leading these great conversations. Super excited to see Tara. I know Tara pretty well. And I work for GoDaddy, been at GoDaddy for 5 years now, and I run the online community and other community programs.
And my name is Jonathan, and I work on the brand social media team as a manager. And I do everything from daily engagements to triaging support questions to building response guides and engagement strategies. And as as COVID hit and we brought on a new VP into our into the brand social team, he did a lot to help bring social and community together. So I've been working with Rachel a lot this year, and it's been fabulous. I'm so I'm so happy to be doing this.
I know.
Really, it's very cool to think about how far this has come, and we're so grateful to have you on this call with us today.
Wonderful. Jesse, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself before we get to our guest of honor?
Sure, yeah, I'm Jesse Wilson. I am a community manager at GoDaddy also. I work with Rachel all the time, so I'm super fortunate for that. Yeah, just looking forward to hearing what Tara has to say.
That's awesome. Rachel, Jonathan, Jesse, I appreciate your support. We appreciate the support of the community and just the opportunity to share this. So without further ado, Tara, would you go ahead and just give us a little bit of background into your world?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me. I love being part of the GoDaddy community and connecting with people both from GoDaddy and the community that has been built there. So thanks for having me and asking me to come and chat with you guys. My name's Tara Claeys, and I have a web agency called Design TLC that I started in 2010 officially. But my background is in marketing and advertising, which I did out of college in the very early 90s, before computers were really a thing. And we used to have pagers and little handwritten memo and calendar booklets, whatever they were called. And then I had my first child in 1997 and decided to stay home with him and start a little craft hobby business. I am an artist, and so used to do these little prints. And that turned into a stationery business over time. So I kind of became one of these accidental entrepreneurs. And just over time, kind of as word of mouth grew, my business grew. And then I needed a website when the internet started to take off. So had someone help me build a website and using Microsoft Front Page. And then had a couple of stationery clients ask me to build them websites. So I had built a few websites and was doing thousands of Christmas cards by hand, sort of cutting and printing in my home office, and decided when tiny prints was taking off that I wasn't really that into it anymore. So got rid of the paper and just went full force into web and graphic design, which I've been doing now for 10 years. For anybody that asked me to, pretty much anybody that came my way. So I've built a wide variety of websites, and I started using WordPress in 2010 and discovered the WordPress community a few years later. So I've become very involved in the WordPress community. I've gone to WordCamps as soon as I found out what WordCamps were, and went to one near my home, which is, I live outside of Washington, D.C., and I went to a WordCamp in Baltimore. Like many people, I really was attracted to the community that's around WordPress and the ease and the accessibility of this type of conference, which opens everyone's eyes to what the possibilities of WordPress are at a very affordable price for somebody who is an entrepreneur, works for themselves. We don't have a travel budget. So and we don't travel. So to have the opportunity to travel to a conference for a few $100s, including airfare and hotel and the conference ticket, it can be really life-changing in terms of being a business owner. So I've learned so much from WordCamps and the people that I've met through them, including the folks at GoDaddy. So that's where I am. I started specializing my agency in the last year in small schools and enrichment programs and nonprofits, specifically education-related nonprofits, which many are, because I had built several websites for those types of organizations, and I really enjoyed building them. I enjoyed the relationships with the clients and having a mission behind what I'm doing. I've enjoyed working with all of my clients, or almost all of them, over the years, but I find when I feel passionate and interested in what the website's about, I do a better job, quite frankly, and I feel really good about that. And so the relationship that I build with the client is also, I think, is enhanced by that enthusiasm as well. So that's the start to finish long version of the story.
Here in a nutshell. No, I love it. I mean, I appreciate first you giving us a background into how you got where you're at. I'll be honest, as a failed artist, finding somebody who's an accidental entrepreneur because of your art skills. Some of us, I tried to become a country artist early in my career, and it plummeted, and it was just terrible. It was a terrible decision.
Yeah.
So
Hey, we have to hear what that means.
Yeah. Country.
Yeah. How do you mean by country?
Yes.
My brother and I actually released a full album, country music, that we wrote and recorded ourselves.
Oh,
And
wow.
then when it came time to start actually pushing to do it live, we weren't as good as we thought in sync together. And the pressure got to him, and here I am, not a country star. So, it's funny how life has those weird pivots, and it's okay, because I enjoyed that. I just don't know that I would want the pressure to have that as a job. So to me, it's like I sing with my kids all the time. That's why Eli sings all the time in the background. And we talked about that on the last episode, but it's funny how when you do things like that, life transitions and it's okay. And in your case, your art skills led into an accidental entrepreneurship and in a journey into owning your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed you to find that, WordCamps, the community that really kind of opened up your eyes and your passion and the availability to grow and kind of exchange ideas and find your passion. I just love that. So I'm not saying that I'm jealous of you because of that, but I am. The other thing is, I love that you've taken a pivot this year where most people are trying to hold on to what they've had in the past. 2020 has been this year of wanting to have this consistency, this control over everything, because the carpet was swept out from under us in March, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you did the opposite. You took the time to decide to pivot to something that really was passionate for you.
Yeah.
Which is creating your own community of empowerment, enlightenment, and working with images of happy kids and nonprofit centers and things that you're actually passionate about. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how did that feel in 2020, making that transition?
Yeah, it feels good. I started it about a year ago, so maybe a little bit more than that. I went to a conference put on by Jennifer Bourne called Content Camp, where you kind of work on content strategy and different content messaging and marketing. And I wasn't sure if I was attending on my own behalf or attending on behalf of clients to learn how to better serve them. And I had been sort of mulling over this school-focused idea, and I had started reworking my website and thinking about what that would mean, and had been fighting against this niche idea because I thought, well, I like the variety and I don't want to have to say no to people and that type of thing. And the more I thought about it, the more liberating it was to think about being a specialist in one particular area. So I really kind of just launched this. I didn't do it as a temporary thing or as a side thing. I just completely converted my whole entire website, my whole process to this is who I serve, this is what we specialize in, this is what we're good at, and then really enmeshing myself in that community. So the big flip, and what's challenging, interesting, is having spent the past 7 or 8 years really immersed in the WordPress community and making a name for myself there, such as it is, speaking at WordCamps, developing relationships within WordPress. That's been really great to help me learn more about how to run my business well, how to do a better job with websites, use the tools, solve problems. I love all of that, but it's not necessarily what has helped my business grow. So my business has grown from word of mouth, from local mostly clients and friends and colleagues. So that relationship, that community of WordPress isn't what's going to help me grow this niche. What I have to do is enmesh myself in another community, which is small school, independent school community, and maybe the nonprofit community, which is much more broad. But so spending the past, year or so figuring out what that means and sponsoring a independent school marketing association, getting on some podcasts, building relationships with other people who serve the same community to get my name out as someone who does this. So that's been a learning process, and it's a little bit of a grieving process anyway, because it means that I don't have the same level of relationship with WordPress people, because you only have so much time. And I really like the WordPress community, and that's where my heart is. So having to kind of spread myself a little bit then in order to get to know this other community has been a learning experience and a challenge that it's evolving, I would say. So that's been a key part of the process. And I would say to anybody who's considering a niche, and there's a lot of talk about this in our community, people think, well, what niche what should my specialization be? And they kind of blue sky, what do I like? Or where's there an opportunity? Dentists or real estate agents or construction companies or those types of things. When you make that choice, you are making a commitment to be enmeshed in that community as well, because you have to understand what their challenges are and what their needs are and who their thought leaders are, who their influencers are. You really have to become part of that community, even though you're not a construction company or a real estate company. You are serving them. So I think a lot of people in our industry think that they need to choose a niche, but they don't think about it that way. And that's a really key part of that process. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. I think that's so valuable. If you were going to jump into a community with intention, like what you've done, you have to align with the direction that they're headed, right? I mean, if you decide that you want to go and work with the specific community because it's going to pay the bills, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're probably not going to find the passion that's going to help your life feel fulfilled. And it's probably not going to lead to a great amount of success in that community, because people can tell when you're not genuine.
Right.
So you're exactly right. When you join a community, it's got to be and it's imperative that you align with their thoughts, their values, and your passion. And if all those meet, you find success. And I think that that's a great thing that you've done in 2020, because, you might have started the journey in last year, but at the beginning of the year, it would have been so easy to pump the brakes, go back to what you were doing because it was safe, but it wasn't what you were passionate about.
Right.
And the world right now is just so overwhelming, and there's so many options, but there's so much negativity and pessimism. And then there's also options to maybe find some positivity. If somebody's got traction in this lane, let me jump in that lane. We might get a little squirrely, but what you're doing is staying focused on what makes you excited and happy and passionate. And I think your community is probably feeling that, and they're probably helping elevate you and get you through that grieving process of maybe having to leave those other clients behind. I mean, I might be reaching my.
That's very nice. I like that. Yeah, I hope it's true. I mean, I think it's a slow process too. It's not something just because I say that I'm good at this and I'm passionate about it doesn't mean that schools are knocking on my door and lining up to hire me. There are very well established companies that are already in this market as well. And so standing out from them and trying to figure out what makes me different, what what can I offer is also part of that learning process. Finding out, what platforms are people using to build their school websites? Who is my ideal target? Schools will spend $50,000 on a custom website, and then several $1,000s a month going forward to do marketing and that type of thing. There are a lot of big private schools that have the budget to do that. That's obviously not my target. I'm a small agency. Our websites are very affordable. We are serving the parochial schools, the preschools, the Montessori schools, the after school cooking program for kids, that type of stuff. That's our sweet spot. And there are certain tools that you learn that all of these organizations need. They all need an event booking system, right? So we know what the different plugins are that can provide that. They need, registration, RSVP, that type of thing for open houses. So there are commonalities, which is another benefit of serving one niche, is that there's a commonality there in what their needs are.
Yeah, no, I love it. You get your stride, and once you understand the commonality, you can focus on the passion, which is actually getting them to elevate their own journeys and push forward. And I have to stop and appreciate you and acknowledge you for what you do, because this year, what you're doing is so much more impactful than anything else out there right now. As a parent, I'm going through online communities and online stores and online learning, and it is just overwhelming. And I couldn't imagine being the person that's running those facilities and those schools and listening to all the parents calling in with their thoughts and their perspectives and their feedback, and then having to pivot and deal with that or figure out what's best for me. So what you're bringing to the table is so much more impactful than So I want to appreciate you for that.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I think that can be true. I also think that I have really pulled back on any marketing efforts that I intended to do, because I think it's a hard time to go to a school and say, I know you have a website and it's okay, but it could be a lot better if you hired me to redo it. Spend $10,000 on a new website. They are just they're trying to figure out if they can open the next day in person, how they're going to get their PPE, they're getting called by parents. Private schools are getting inundated with inquiries because there are all these school systems that are closed, and people want to put their kids in school in person. So I understand, as being connected with this community, that redesigning a website is not their top priority. And so I want to offer what I can in terms of advice and consultation without being insensitive to what their priorities are right now. So I think being an ally to them during this process and helping them figure out any minor things that can be done without trying to go on a full sell is really important. Yeah.
I actually have a quick question about that. I couldn't help it, because it makes perfect sense. Like, it makes perfect sense that these schools have higher priorities. My mom's a teacher at a private school right now, and like the things that she'll tell me that they're dealing with is like, you're already a teacher, like you're already a teacher, your hands are already full. But on the flip side of that, you have to have a really functional website. You have to have a user-friendly website. Or at least that's what I think is expected by a lot of these people, especially if they're going, if I'm paying private school tuition and I look at your website and it's not loading, or it's not, it's not user-friendly, I'm already going to think that this is the experience my child's going to have. So what I'm curious, and I'm sure, like, no matter what you do, whatever they hire you for, you're always a consultant in many ways. Have you found that during this period in particular, you've had to do more consulting, or you've had to do a lot more education with your clients, or with these potential clients, around like even just the value of having this, an updated web presence, or what this current climate means to be, or what it means to have a digital presence in this current climate? I'm very curious to hear about how that's affected you.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think for me, I've seen that with my existing clients. So helping them, consulting with them, and pivoting with them on how to offer their open house tours online, how to create a process where it's easy for people to learn more about their school without coming in person. of an after school enrichment program, summer camp program, that we built a whole online learning management system. And now we're marketing that across the country rather than just locally. So looking for opportunities as well. As far as new clients, new prospects, I can understand that anybody who's running a school right now, especially my target, which is usually a very small school, so they don't necessarily have a full-on marketing staff or person, that they are wearing a lot of hats in that situation. They are not in a position right now to be going out and searching for a web design company to redo their site. They're working with whoever's doing their site right now. And if it's in WordPress, which a lot of these schools are, then there's an opportunity to offer advice and assistance, to offer some SEO suggestions, those types of things within the communities that I've engaged with. But I think that their bandwidth is very limited. So unless their website is completely not working at all, they're going to continue to try to put band-aids on it to make it work right now until they can get their head above water. It's a big undertaking for a small school to redo a website because they don't have a staff to do writing and they don't have a budget to hire a writer. So they have a lot of content to develop and that type of thing. And they probably have somebody on their staff who's doing it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And a professional website isn't something that they necessarily have considered. So those are the opportunities, but they're also the challenge in trying to help them understand that the investment could pay off
Totally.
with one enrollment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just what I keep thinking is like, it's the long run, the big picture. This is still so important, but it's such a crazy time where you have to prioritize so many things that are totally vital to the survival of their schools, their businesses, whatever they are.
Right. Yeah. It's, as I said, it's not a quick process. And so we're taking this time to write blog articles that are relevant for these times and for schools in general, and just engage in the communities in social media communities and other communities that we've joined in the past year. So, and I think another way that niche agencies break into their field is by going to conferences and speaking and getting in front of people and making themselves the expert. And that's unfortunately not something that we can do right now. So trying to find other avenues to connect with people. I've done a couple of webinars with some other school marketing people, that type of thing. But it's a slow process. You have to be patient. And I have a large number of maintenance clients. So we had we have ongoing revenue, which helps us not feel the pressure to have to bring on new clients every single month at this point in time. So we'll see what happens next year. But I think next year, in 2021, early 2021, I think that will be the time to start schools thinking about over the summer, redoing what we've learned now, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully they will be offering in-person school in the fall of 2021 is the hope. So building up for that is, I think, the messaging that we're looking for in the next couple of months. We've had so much with COVID and the election, there's to break through that noise. It just, again, for me personally, it feels insensitive to go out and try to say, on top of all of this, you really should redo your website. I'm not comfortable with it. And if you're not comfortable with a selling message, you're not going to sell anything. So I think that's really important to recognize also, is that it's hard enough to market yourself. But if you're really uncomfortable in the current climate to do that, then don't even try, because it's not going to work. It's not.
That's so interesting. That idea of just being very sensitive to understanding that it's like, my business goals are obviously to try it, or top level is to try and get more clients or get more business or whatever it is. But to recognize that in pursuing that right now, you could ultimately be doing more damage to your reputation or to these people that you've already established a relationship with, because you would be going, hey, I know the world is falling apart, but here's another problem you haven't thought about. It is. You make such a good point that you want to be a partner and you don't want to be someone that, you want to help them solve an issue that they've recognized. You don't want to be the one to be like, oh, by the way, I saw these holes in your, okay.
Right.
That's very, very thoughtful. Very good.
And I mean, I'm in a unique position too. And when I spoke to Adam a few weeks ago, I am not your typical small agency in some ways. I am in my 50s. My kids are grown and gone. I don't have college tuition to pay any longer. My husband has a full-time job with benefits. So I'm very privileged. I don't have a revenue goal to keep the lights on and keep food on the table. And I'm also not at an age where I want to see exponential growth in my business and to have a staff that I am responsible for, and to hang a sign up on the outside of a building, it's just not in my plans. So for me, what it means now is that I have the opportunity to be selective and to be patient, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Tara, I have so many thoughts about all of what you've shared. First of all, I love too that you're doing something that you're passionate about. And we've talked about this in some of our other meetups of so many people don't do that, and they just go through life on just, again, kind of rote thinking. And working on something that you love is so helpful in just making sure your life is fulfilled. So that's first and foremost. The other thing, as you're talking, I was thinking about that don't undersell yourself too, because one of the things sometimes with consultancies is that, especially in the market that you're working in, is that people can unconsciously take advantage of your advice without ever paying you for it. And there's a line in the sand that you have to draw on that. And, understanding what you just shared about, not having a particular revenue goal, or, not feeling like the pressure of having to bring in additional income. But there also is kind of from a personal standpoint of making sure that people value you for what you're saying and doing. And I believe that you're going to get a rush in 2021 of a bunch of people that are going to be like, oh, I remember I talked to Tara, and she had said, when you have come around, these are the things that you should think about. So
we'll circle back and see if that. No, I have a very decent sized ego. So I will say, when I say that that the revenue goals, I don't have those standing looming ahead of me, but for sure I want to be successful, and what that means for me is growth in terms of the evolution of what I'm doing, and what I'm learning and what I'm offering. And that means, if I were to go a whole year and not get a new client, that would bum me out. That would bum me out. So so of course I put pressure on myself in other ways, whether it's revenue or not, that to be successful. We talk about the word success. I have a podcast, which Rachel knows about. She was just on it, called Hallway Chats. And I co-host that with Liam Dempsey. And he's someone that I met through WordPress, through the community. And we talk to we say everyday WordPress users. So not the thought leaders necessarily, or the people who are on all of the other WordPress podcasts. We kind of talk to people who aren't on a lot of podcasts, and just give them the opportunity to share their story, because it's fun to talk about yourself. And we ask them all what success means to them. And it's really interesting to hear the variety of ways that people describe that, what defines success for them, and for everybody it's different. So I don't think there's been anybody who said that success is an income, is a number, on the bottom line. So that's something that we pay attention to. And I think as a society, we gauge success based on that dollar number. But 6 figures, 5 figures, 10 figures, you can be successful at any number, I think. So, yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up your podcast. I was going to say something, but I was waiting to see that if you would bring that up. So really great that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's something kind of extra and different that we do. It's a community thing. It's not a marketing thing. We're not, there's no, we don't have sponsors or anything like that. We just do it just because we like to meet people. We've had so many interesting guests. I always like to say, I actually talked to a blind guy in Tasmania who makes websites, who has a website for people with disabilities. And you think like, you're on a Zoom call with a person in Tasmania and you're thinking, how is this possible that I get to meet you? It's really fascinating. So we've had some great guests. Yeah, we're in our 3rd year.
Nice.
That speaks so highly to the community.
It
Like,
does.
I know that that's kind of the name of the game here, but just the fact that, and it's even kind of tying this back into the conversation about what success looks like you didn't launch this podcast to get 1 million followers. You didn't launch this podcast to get sponsors. You launched this podcast because you and Liam, what's his name, Liam?
Liam.
You and Liam craved to know more people in this community and to help share the stories of these people with others who are in a very similar situation where they just want to know more of these people. And just what I do every day with talking to either GoDaddy customers or people who just want to know more about websites or people who just literally will message us and say, how do I start a business? It is so the value of that is incredible. There's so much. I'm the kind of person who, like, you could try and sell me anything with any kind of hard ad, but the moment someone tells me a good story about the business, I'll buy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm that kind of person where I'll get a paid ad and I'll go, okay, I'm not going to buy from you because you're listening to me and I don't like it. But then a friend will tell me a little joke or something and I'm like, oh, I'm totally all in. And
Right.
it does. I think it just, a podcast like that, the way it was created and the type of people you talk to, I think the value that brings to your business and your mission for your business and what you do is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been a fun experience. Yeah, for sure.
I think that was there was so much value right there. So I have to say thank you, Jonathan and Rachel, for your insights and your reflection back into Tara's, journey.
Yeah.
Having the podcast and being part of that community, you said it's not marketing, but really it is, because it's relevance and proximity, and people are going to appreciate you and respect you for that.
Yeah.
And really, at the end of the day, the definition of luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So you're prepared to engage people in the right moments with the right context and the right passion. And if they come to you, you can be selective and you're going to find success. And I think that is so valuable. And I really appreciate you for mentioning hallway chats, because there are people who are listening to this and they want to find some viable means to differentiate themselves, to put themselves out there, to get that proximity. And they don't want to come across as arrogant or predatory. They want to come across as genuine.
Right.
What you've done is you've built that environment, and I appreciate you for that. And I think obviously Rachel and Jonathan and Jesse and we've all seen that in your story today and in our interactions with you, and being, Rachel being a guest on your show. All of that is fantastic, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you. That's so nice. You guys are making me feel good. I appreciate it.
That's the journey, right? That's why we're here. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we're kind of at the end of our time limit here. Is there any last minute questions that anybody has for Tara before we close this out?
I just say more power to you. Love it. And, look forward to hearing more of your story in 2021.
Thank
Totally
you.
seconded.
Thanks. I do too.
And I want to close out validating again your journey. Everything you're doing is perpetuating a better world, because you're helping young schools and small educational environments to thrive when they need you the most. So thank you for that.
Sure. Thank you very much. You guys are making me feel good. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good rest of the day, you guys.
Bye. Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.